Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellow Cat. Write your favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Let's get started. Why did you suddenly quit from a job? I put in an application to work at this neighborhood coffee shop. Because I had a lot of experience, they offered me a nice starting wage and even gave me an official barista course so I could learn more. The tasks were simple. Given the circumstances, which made me happy, I accepted the job. They were having problems hiring new staff and were finding it difficult to retain them for longer than a few weeks, as they informed me right away. Significant red flag, but I went to work nonetheless. I met the manager, and immediately it became clear why the employees weren't sticking around. True Karen, who will be kind to you and then yell at you in the same breath. She began by assigning me all of the tasks that she had postponed for a few weeks, all the while consuming coffee and posing extremely private queries to me. When I told her I was excited to have kids, she begged me not to get pregnant right away so we could take more vacations. She kept asking me if I was pregnant, and even though I told her it was unlikely, she wouldn't go away. Even after we clocked off that night, she begged me to take a pregnancy test and show it to her the following day in a voicemail. What? The following day, I log in and begin setting up shop. For whatever reason, the rule was that you had to leave your tips in your jar from the previous night and could only retrieve them the following morning. Each of us had a separate jar with our name on it, separating all the tips of the day into our personal jars. Anyway, she immediately goes to her jar while I'm going about my business. I turned to pick up whatever she threw around, thinking she had dropped it because I can hear her banging things around and coins dropping to the ground. She became very angry and began accusing me of stealing her tips from the previous night since it was obvious that money was missing. I'm scared now because I'm positive that I didn't steal anything. She then begins to threaten me, saying she'll take my tips and report me to the owner if she can't find hers. I overlooked it when she later returned, saying she had found her tips and had forgotten to put them in her back pocket the previous evening. As the day wears on, I'm assisting a customer with getting his coffee grains and baking a new sheet of cookies. I hear her approach and scream at me as I fill his bag with coffee and weigh it to make sure. "That is excessively high. How in the world are you doing this?" I was about 30 grams overweight, and we frequently topped off the jars with extra coffee because we exceeded the weight limit. She demonstrated that to me, but I suppose she thought I would always reach the ideal weight? I'm already feeling weird about the whole thing by now, but what happens next is what really stuck with me. Together, we closed the shop at the end of the day. After counting the cash and placing it in the safe, I began counting the tip jar so that we could divide it in half. Having put in a full day's work and knowing that the money in the jar was probably close to $50, I was thrilled. She assured me that since I had earned it, there was no need to worry and that she would split the jar. Since I was positive she wouldn't be fair, I took a seat at the table directly in front of her. She simply took the main jar and filled her own jar to the brim. She must have believed that I wouldn't observe, but I did for sure and sensed her getting tense. She gave me a cookie and said I could have it for free, so I guess she felt bad at her cost. After only a few days there, I called them the following morning to tell them I wouldn't be returning. Considering that we already own and operate multiple family businesses, I took this job for enjoyment and to obtain barista experience. Going to work makes no sense if someone's gonna make it unbearably unpleasant for you. Although I was so over it that I never called the owner to let him know, I did feel bad for him because he had no idea why he couldn't retain employees. In 2005, I was the only PC service technician employed by Cirque du City in our store, Store A. They offered to move some of us to store B, which is 60 miles away, while our store was being rebuilt after a natural disaster that forced us to close. I was given permission by my store manager A to take the 23rd and 24th of December off in order to attend the wedding of one of my closest friends prior to all of this. I agreed to maintain the same vacation time with the regional manager when I decided to accept the transfer rather than take a severance. When I accepted the relocation, I had an agreement with the regional manager, but store manager B at the new location released the schedule for that week and didn't follow through. He claimed that he created the schedule, not the regional manager. On those days, I told him I wouldn't be there. I just walked out after store manager B informed me that he saw it as the same as me telling him I was quitting. After speaking with store manager B, the operations manager from store A, who is now an assistant manager at store B, gave me a call and said I could have my job back. However, in the time it took me to drive home, I'd already secured employment elsewhere. After a while, store A reopened under the previous management team, and I returned to work as manager there until its closure in 2009. I was just a 16-year-old trying to make ends meet at a local steakhouse during a particularly bad tornado outbreak in my area. I asked to leave because I live 20 miles out of town and there were supercells forming over the area. I've always been punctual, never missed an appointment, and produced really good work. The owner liked my work ethic so much that when I graduated, they asked me to consider becoming a manager. I have no idea why they asked. Knowing that I had always done my best as an employee, I went ahead and asked if I could leave a little early because no one was coming in for food, we were still at full staff, and no cuts had been made. We had a tornado shelter at home, so as long as I could get there, I wouldn't be too worried. In addition, I wanted to leave the rotation as soon as possible so that in my very slow-moving 1992 Buick LeSabre, I could at least attempt to make it home. I was waved off and given a muttered, "I'll think about it," by the on-duty manager before he disappeared into the office. After about 15 minutes, he storms into the wait station and announces that the tornado sirens are going off, so everyone must leave. I run to the walk-ins as I'm terrified and have nowhere else to go because I can't go home. I'm kicking this bag of buttholes without a place to hide from the F4 tornado outside the restaurant. They should have simply let me go when I asked, but I suppose they didn't want to be the liability. It didn't help that I was 16 and kinda shy around big, angry men like the manager. I ended up running away with another server. Poor thing was freaking out because she was unfamiliar with tornadoes. We waited for my then stepdad to come get me by hiding in her boyfriend's mother's basement, and even then, we nearly flooded out his truck on the way home. When my parents called to yell at the manager in question for jeopardizing not just my life, but also the life of the other survivors, he became quite agitated. They were so angry that they actually quit for me. The manager went on to become a general manager of a newly opened restaurant branch in a different town, which I believe closed down after only a year and a half because of bad management. Oh well. What horrible tale do you have about your neighbors or homeowners association? There's still a presence of my parents in the United States. We will refer to the HOA guys in their neighborhood as Little D-Face because he's a rather diminutive individual who possesses a large ego. A smidgen of sexism as well. When he notices something's wrong in his prestigious neighborhood, such as a campaign sign in someone's yard, "What a horror!" he waits until the husband leaves for work so that he can yell at the wife, considering that it's obvious that every wife stays at home. It was very early in the morning when my mother left for work. Seeing a car pull out in the garage and leave, Little D-Face deduced that the person who was driving the car must have been the man of the house. When he finally made his way up to the stairs, he did so with a defiant expression on his face. However, when he arrived, my enormous father was there to greet him and ask him what the H he wanted. Turning around, he went back to his house. As the week progressed, he discovered a house that was being rented by 4 students and informed them that the neighborhood was reserved exclusively for families. It was appropriate to laugh him off the porch. This is a story from the apartment buildings where my parents lived. The building has solar panels installed on the roof of the flat, and the HOA is responsible for cleaning them twice a year with the help of a company that has a contract with them. Due to the fact that the roof is typically inaccessible and that working on the roof requires the use of safety equipment, they're required to hire a professional to complete the task. During one winter, there was a fairly heavy snowfall that covered the panels. My father, being a stingy jerk, was not going to allow some snowfall to cause his energy bill to increase, so he went up there and cleared the snow with a broom. When the president of the HOA saw this, it was obvious that he thought if he can clear snow, he can clean them too. As a result, he abruptly terminated the contract with the cleaning company without even consulting my father or any of the other members of the HOA. For the sole purpose of saving a couple €100 annually, he was genuinely anticipating that my father, who is over 70 years old, would climb up on the roof twice a year without any safety equipment or other equipment in order to clean the solar panels. Consequently, for the sake of context, my house is located in the vicinity of a homeowners association HOA. However, because I requested that my house be excluded from the HOA due to a conflict with the previous HOA rules, I was able to avoid adhering to certain HOA rules, even though I did adhere to the off-property rules. For example, you're not allowed to park your cars on the street. We'll discuss this further in the future. I currently own a number of very nice automobiles, including a Dodge Durango SRT that has been modified with raised suspension, ram bar, and other modifications. In addition, I have a Nissan Skyline that I use as a project car, and I also have a Dodge Challenger that I use as my daily commuter. Due to the fact that my Skyline is stored in the garage and at least 5 other members of the HOA own a Charger, the HOA has never had any issues with either of my vehicles. However, as of late, they have practically declared war on my SRT because the HOA has implemented a new policy regarding modified cars that are left out in the open, including driveways. Now, it's obvious that I believed that this new policy would not apply to me because my home is not part of the HOA, and neither I nor any member of my family are involved in any way with the HOA. She just so happened to live across the street from me, and she just hated the SRT, ruining her view of a perfect neighborhood. That's her quote, not mine. And she knocked on my door with approximately 4 or 5 HOA representatives and said, "Hello, sir. I would just like to remind you about HOA Rule 6, Section 4. Any and all modified cars," referring to my SRT, "are not to be parked on the street or driveways." This occurred shortly after a new HOA president was introduced, and I should add that she is an absolute Karen. Anyway, she just so happened to live across the street from me, to which I replied with, "Well, I'm not part of the HOA, so that rule does not apply to my driveway. I won't park it on the street, but I can and will park it on my driveway." Once I said that, she pointed out that the SRT hangs out onto the sidewalk by about 2 inches, absolutely no inconvenience to anyone, when I pointed out that not only is my SRT around the same length as my driveway and I need space to open my garage door, she responds with the snarkiest, "Well, can't you just put it in your garage?" To which I opened my garage to show absolutely no space due to me working on my Skyline, and I might have set off an atomic bomb because she starts screaming at me saying, "Rule 6, Section 3 says you cannot modify your cars in your driveway or garage." To which I calmly reply with, "I am in no way affiliated with the HOA. If you look for my house in the HOA files, you'll see that my house is not in the HOA. Now, please, exit my property before I call the cops on you," for after that, she begins babbling and shouting incoherently, and the other HOA members who were present told her that I was right and that she had lost this battle. They left after that, but not before kicking a wrench that I had left on the floor at my car, which just so happened to hit my GD car. The first mistake was when I left a bill for more than $500 at the door of the president of Karen HOA after she had shattered a wrench on my car. She was furious and refused to pay. When she refused to pay, I filed a lawsuit against her personally, and she used the attorneys retained by the HOA. This was the second mistake she made. Because she never once denied that she had kicked the wrench at my car, I don't know whether she was extremely stupid or had an excessive amount of faith in her attorneys. As a result of my victory in the case, the judge ordered Karen to pay me $500 instead of the initial $500. In the event that the HOA president was unsuccessful in the case, she brought the HOA down with her. This was due to the fact that she utilized the HOA's attorneys in order to involve the HOA in the case. Only a few weeks after the case, the HOA removed Karen from her position as president due to her abuse of power in her role as HOA president. Following Karen's removal from her position as president of the HOA, life continued as usual and no one voiced any complaints about my automobile rentals. Thank you for listening to these stories. If you want to see new videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the like button.